Welcome back to part 2 of vocabulary for IELTS speaking. By the end of this lesson, you will understand the meaning and use of synonyms and collocations. These are two very specific types of vocabulary and language that, if used well, will help you score higher marks in your IELTS speaking test. Before we move on, I'd just like to talk about increasing the range of your vocabulary. So reading a range of articles, books and other resources is the best way to expand your language. And it has been scientifically proven that the best way to increase your vocabulary is through reading. BBC Learning English, online articles and National Geographic are just a few examples of excellent reading resources found on the internet, and I suggest you use them and read articles that you are interested in. So there was just a quick word on increasing your vocabulary. Let's move on to synonyms and a quick description of what they are. So synonyms are groups of words that are very similar in their meaning. They usually have a very close or shared meaning. And here are some examples of them. Dark. Some synonyms for dark would be gloomy, shady, pitch black. Hard working. Industrious, determined. Sad, upset, depressed, down in the dumps. Here are some examples of synonyms, words with shared meanings. If we take a look at dark and pitch black, they're close in meaning but not exactly the same. Pitch black means zero visibility, whereas dark means just some visibility. So we can see that synonyms are just words that are very close in their meaning, and they will help you by keeping your language interesting and not repeating vocabulary too often in the IELTS speaking test. Let's take a look at a synonym activity. Here we have the word nice, which I do try and advise students to avoid, as it's not particularly exciting or interesting. Here are some synonyms for nice. Now let's take a look at an example part 2 question and some language from a student. So the topic is describe a gift you recently received. Here's the student's answer. My best friend gave me a nice gift last year. It was a signed copy of my favourite book. So what kind of synonyms could you use to replace nice with something a bit more interesting? Well, let's take a look. My best friend gave me a delightful gift last year. It was a signed copy of my favourite book. So we can see from these two examples that by using a more interesting synonym, our language is automatically upgraded, which in turn will result in slightly better scores in your IELTS speaking. Let's take a look at another example, and here we have happy. Can you think of any synonyms for happy? Here are some examples that I have added. And let's take a look at the part 2 topic. Describe a language you have learnt. Let's take a look at the student's answer. Well, as I'm sure you know, I have been learning English for some time. I am happy to now study for IELTS. Again, much like nice, happy is not really a very interesting, emotive word. So what synonym could we use in place of happy? Let's take a look at an upgraded, up-leveled answer. Well, as I'm sure you know, I have been learning English for some time. I am overjoyed to now study for IELTS. A much more interesting piece of vocabulary. And now let's take a look at bad. What other synonyms, more interesting words can we use for bad? Okay, let's take a look at the part 2 topic, which is describe some music that you like. Okay, let's take a look at the student's answer. I love any music with guitar. I've been learning to play too, although my progress is pretty bad. Okay, not a bad response to this question, but I think we can replace bad with something a bit more interesting. I love any music with guitar. I've been learning to play too, although my progress is pretty awful. Much more interesting. Now, as I said before, not all synonyms have exactly the same meaning. So it may be that a synonym doesn't quite work in place of something else. For example, my progress is pretty awful. That works well. But what if I change it for the synonym rough? My progress is pretty rough. It doesn't quite work, so you need to be careful in your use of synonyms. Again, by reading every day, you will be able to widen your vocabulary and have a better understanding of synonyms. Let's move on to take a look at collocations. So what are collocations? Well, collocations are words that are often paired together. So you find these words close to each other in a phrase. They will help you sound more natural in your speaking. Let's take a look at a few examples for take. Take time. Take a break. Take a taxi. So these are common collocations for take, common words that are paired together with take. And using collocations will make you sound more native. Let's take a look at get. Get drunk, get married, get ready, get permission. Just with synonyms, you've got to be careful and accurate with your use of collocations. For example, you wouldn't say get a break. That doesn't quite sound as natural as take a break. Another example would be you wouldn't say gain drunk. Gain is similar to get in the way that you are taking something. You have something that you didn't have before. But you wouldn't say gain drunk. That just doesn't sound very native and fluent. Let's go through a few common collocations that you could use in your speaking. So common collocations for make. Make a mess. I love my pets, but the dogs especially can really make a mess. I spend so much time cleaning up. I heard that on Bitcoin you can make money quickly and easily. It sounds too easy and I don't trust it. Make a difference. It's important to help others and try to make a difference in our local communities. And the last collocation for make progress. Now I'm practicing every day. I'm starting to make progress in my guitar playing. Here are some common collocations for go. Go abroad. I'd love to have more time to go abroad, but my work schedule is just too demanding. Go shopping. Here it is used in the past tense. I went shopping to a new big mall last weekend. I spent far too much money. When I see my favourite musician playing, I kind of go crazy. You could call me a real fan. And the last one, my teacher told me to really go for it and study as much as I can before the test. Now, just to clarify this meaning, go for it, it means to try 110%. That's a really native sounding phrase and collocation. So maybe you could try and use this in your practice speaking. Go for it. Give it a go. Okay, so that is an explanation of what collocations are with a few common examples that you could quite easily use in your speaking too. Now, as some further reading and an activity I would like you to complete, go to Google and research common collocations. Try using them in your speaking. Okay, so that brings us to the end of this lesson on vocabulary for IELTS speaking. As always, if you have any questions, please go to the Q&A section of the course. See you in the next lesson.